Cool. Afternoon, everyone. Yeah, thank you very much for coming to our session this afternoon. It's going to be a little bit of an intimate session, I guess. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming along and talking to us. So you've probably seen there's an acronym quiz just on your tables. So we're going to ask you, some of you have done it already, but to spend the next sort of 4 or 5 minutes just filling it out and giving it a go. We've got a very exciting prize at the end that Tanya from our marketing team is going to give out. So yeah, just 3 or 4 minutes sort of filling it in, and then we're going to ask you guys to mark each other's. And then at the end of the day, we've got a quick fire quiz round for the top 3. And the winner of that will win the prize that we've got. So it's a little bit convoluted. Don't be too disappointed with the prize. But yeah, just spend the next 3 or 4 minutes just sort of filling that out. There's a couple in there that I'll be amazed if people get, to be honest. Some of them are very strange. But yeah, they're sort of half industry, half just sort of slightly odd. So yeah, we'll catch up in 3 or 4 minutes.
And the reason we've done that is because it's the after lunch session, guys. So we needed to start with something to, apart from coffee, to give you some energy with before we fill you in with all of our optimization tips and products.
Cool.
As with any pub quiz, phones not allowed. Even if you've got Wi-Fi working. Just a little bit. Be subtle. If you need to cheat, just be subtle. That's the Italian in me coming out. Do it with class, okay?
You can do it as long as you don't have ad blocker.
So yeah, put your names on the top. I forgot to say that bit. But yeah, we're not going to announce the bottom, the people at the bottom.
No shame.
But yeah, we'll be announcing the top 3, I guess. Right, have people had enough time, or do people need a couple more minutes, or?
Can be strategic, team up.
I think
we've got even 4 prizes, so can be.
Excellent. So do you want to just swap papers on your tables? No strategic swapping either. So. And then I think T is going to read out the answers.
Oh really? Is it not that? Oh yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yes, so we could have.
All right.
Right, are people ready? Ready with your red marker pens? Lovely.
So IMHO. IMHO is, in my honest opinion, so 1 mark for those.
Who got that?
Fine. If you humble or honest opinion, there you go. For next one, IB is Internet Advertising Bureau.
That was the.
That was the catch. GDPR is General Data Protection Regulation. DVD is Digital Video Disc. R&D is Research and Development. GDN is Google Display Network. FOMO is Fear of Missing Out. HTML is Hypertext Markup Language. IPA is Institute of Practitioners in Advertising. And FWIW. Did anyone try and guess this one?
Yeah, for what it's worth.
There you go, for what it's worth. Yeah.
It's impressive.
Now you can show off and use them in emails and texts.
Yeah.
Completely needless, that one, but that's fine. So yeah, if you just want to put your mark out of 10, and then Tanya's going to collect it.
The price is absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth it. It's priceless. Yeah.
Great, thank you, T. So yeah, a quick introduction from our side, as I realise I haven't really introduced myself. I'm Paul. I run the publisher team over at IS. I've been at the business for 2 years, and I guess have really seen IS, shift somewhat from an agency-focused business when we launched in 2009 to really over the last 2 years develop tools that we're going to be talking about today for publishers to enable them to better optimize and deliver out their inventory using particularly viewability, but also brand safety and fraud as part of those targeting parameters. And I'm going to be presenting with Clem.
Hello. So my name is Clementina Piazza, or Clem, easier. I've joined IS 3 months ago as programmatic specialist or director, if someone makes me angry and I just pump in the title there. But I come from the buy side. My experience has been DSP. So today I'm joining Paul to kind of add a bit of context from the other side into this conversation.
Great. So I guess, it's a very small room, so we can certainly make this as interactive as possible. So please ask questions as we're talking. But the format of today is Clem and I will give you a bit of insight into IS, some of the industry challenges we see, and in particular our optimization tool. And then we're going to be going through a bit of a workshop whereby we have a question for each table, and we're going to be asking you to think about that question and report back to the rest of the room at the end of the session. But we'll probably be about an hour. Potentially slightly longer, as we realise an hour and a half is a long time. But yes, so quiz is done. But yeah, I guess we're going to be talking about automation today, and these are some of the sort of headlines that I found when just typing in automation into Google, and it's certainly impacting our lives in a number of different ways, and it's obviously really impacting digital as well. Some people, our cousins across the pond, are particularly scared of it. With more than 70% of US fearing robots taking over our lives. So there's a lot of press about it, whether or not it's driverless cars, whether or not it's robot carers, or whatever it may be. It's certainly impacting our lives, and it will do in digital as well. So here's a particularly scary image of what might face us when we, end up in a care home at 95. We might be being looked after by robots. Who knows? But I'm not going to be talking about that today. I'm going to be talking about digital automation, and in particular what publishers can do with media quality now that you have the same tools that buyers have had for a number of years, and we'll be going through that in a bit more detail. So I just wanted to talk through an industry timeline. Some of you may not have been in the industry as long as this, but if you look at sort of 2009, that's when brand safety really hit the headlines, and you started to see institutions like IS develop to protect advertisers. I guess I wanted to highlight that because brand safety or brand risk seems to be a new, sort of almost like a new topic of conversation, whereas in reality it's always been a big challenge in digital. So when 2009 came along and there were brand safety challenges, AdSafe was launched as a business, which later became IS. But effectively we built tools to allow buyers to protect themselves against content that they did not want to appear against. So it was very much a sort of buy-side focused tool. In 2013, we launched pre-bid segments. So within programmatic channels, within AppNexus or MediaMath or DBM, you can choose IS media quality segments. So you can choose viewability segments, brand safety segments, and fraud segments. And again, for buyers using those platforms, it protects them against inventory that we have pre-qualified as being unbrand safe, against users or sites that we have pre-qualified as being fraudulent, and it also allows them to boost sort of overall levels of viewability. So we partner with a number of trading desks, but we also partner with publishers. So the likes of The Guardian, for example, use our segments within AppNexus to extend their buys, but also protect their advertisers from some of those challenges within media quality. In 2014, ad fraud really hit the headlines, and it remains a big challenge today. And I know we're going to be talking about that tomorrow in a bit more detail. But again, we built tools for the buy side to protect them against fraudulent users, against fraudulent sites that we'd earmarked. In 2015, time-based advertising was launched, and that was very much pioneered by the FT. And I've always said I really applaud the likes of FT for pushing that particular standard in market. I guess a question to you guys, publishers in the room, do you see, I guess it's a yes or no. Yes, do you see time as being a potential selling model in 2018 for you, or who would put their hand up and say yes?
We see some heads shaking.
No.
No.
So what's the reason for that, do you think? Is it an operational challenge, or do you don't see a demand from the buy side for sort of hourly focused, time focused campaigns?
I think from the knowledge that I got from the likes of FT, it's quite manual. There's a lot of manual work involved. And so yes, the resource would be one issue. I think also from we as a publisher not there yet. We're not ready for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely only suitable for certain publishers.
Yeah.
Those publishers with particularly high dwell time, for example. The FT is potentially well sort of set up for that compared to a sort of snacky type publisher. But it's definitely been in the news for a number of years, but probably hasn't taken off as much as some publishers and indeed some industry experts would have hoped potentially. But I did like that because I liked the fact there was a premium publisher in market, really sort of pushing the debate and I guess owning the debate somewhat around viewability.
And it is something that from the buy side we are seeing now, like in the past year or so, coming up more and more, and mainly around as a sort of like counter argument to the whole like viewability piece, right? Viewability being only one of the metrics that you should really be worrying about. So time came in off the back of a series of studies and tests that have been done, right? Following the principle that, in theory, if your ad is more viewable, you've got more chances to influence a user. But it turned out that that wasn't really the case, right? From all the tests done, the uplift that was seen wasn't as substantial as we would have expected. And that's when the time metric came in quite strongly again, because it wasn't, the pixel percentage of pixels, on the page, like the viewability alone per se. It was the viewability plus how long a user actually spent consuming that message. So the reason why we're asking today is because it is an argument, a subject that we've seen coming up more and more, not only like from the buy side, meaning the agencies, but from the buy side, meaning the actual advertisers. So
yeah, and you'll certainly see different sell side partners with their own sort of standards when it comes to viewability. It's not altogether surprising that someone like Facebook in market really pushed the importance of the first sort of 2 to 3 seconds. If you think of how people interact with Facebook on their mobiles, etc. So you are certainly seeing a divergence of standards both on the buy side and the sell side. And in 2017, we've seen social media verification sort of really come to the fore, I guess. So it was driven by the buy side, by advertisers, really pushing the likes of Facebook and Snapchat and Twitter, it's a new one, to open up their inventory to third-party verification like IIS. So it's quite a nascent part of our business, social media verification, but it is a big growing part of our business as advertisers effectively want to compare the likes of Facebook with publishers. So yeah, we expect that to be a sort of big sort of growth area in 2018. And today, I guess most importantly, and what we want to talk about is publisher automation. And I guess the reason I highlighted the timeline is if you see a lot of the major sort of events in 09 and 13 and 14, the tech that was built, the brand safety and fraud and viewability predictive tech was sort of focused on the buy side. So what we've done now is take all of that technology, all of that brand safety analysis, all of that analysis of fraudulent sort of behavior, and offered up that technology to publishers. So you can now control the delivery within your ad server, within DFP, and we'll go through that in a bit more detail. So yeah, I guess as the industry has developed and you've seen a lot of those sort of landmark events, so is the accreditation process. Are people familiar with the MRC and the ABC? Not really. The MRC is a Media Ratings Council in the US, which effectively audits or accredits verification vendors for things like viewability, for things like brand safety, and for things like ad fraud. So it's a way of, I guess, increasing and improving transparency in the verification industry, which, sort of 5 years ago probably didn't have the same, respect and understanding that it does now. So, as anyone using, an IIS or whatever it may be, you can go onto the MRC website or the ABC website and really understand what we're accredited for, and you can start comparing different vendors. For fraud, you see at the moment that is driven by the MRC in the US. However, I have it under very good authority that the ABC, which is the UK equivalent, will be auditing vendors for fraud as well over probably in Q1 next year. So again, you can have a really clear idea of what vendors offer when it comes to fraud detection. So yeah, what are the current market dynamics that we certainly see at IIS? It's probably some things that you experience as well. Digital is under pressure. I know we heard from Nick Flood at Dennis today talking about how much pressure publishers are under, but certainly digital as a medium is under pressure. Whether or not that's the likes of P&G questioning the murky supply chain, whether or not that's Facebook or YouTube having challenges with brand safety or overinflating sort of video viewability performance. Absolutely, digital is under pressure. Media quality remains paramount, so we're certainly seeing both buy side and sell side really sort of push things like brand safety and ad fraud and viewability. And what we're starting to see is big global advertisers, or indeed sort of not necessarily global advertisers, but big advertisers pushing publishers and asking publishers to make assurances around ad fraud, make assurances around brand safety. So you may be experiencing that in some of your day-to-day experience with advertisers. Thirdly, programmatic is under scrutiny, and Clem will take you through in a bit more detail that particular angle. The duopoly is being questioned, as I mentioned earlier. The Facebooks and the Googles of this world, despite eating up a lot of budget, are certainly being questioned when it comes to things like brand safety and things like viewability. So there's a real opportunity for premium publishers to take some of that debate and really, I guess, really own it and sort of stand out from the duopoly. And then finally, as I mentioned in the timeline, technology is leaning towards publishers, particularly when it comes to media quality delivery. So what is the opportunity for premium publishers? Certainly talking about a premium environment is something that you're very well used to doing in market, but actually combining that with technology is certainly an opportunity. Yes, you can go to market and say you have quality journalism, you have editorial control, but what you probably want to do is couple that with technology as well and say, yes, we also use third-party technology to vet our inventory for brand safety and vet our inventory for levels of ad fraud as well. Take back control over campaign delivery from agencies. So who's had sort of challenges with IS, being totally open when it comes to brand safety and ad fraud? Yeah, what sort of challenges have you had?
So keyword targeting is a big issue. So some of the lists in there are quite hard. So if someone's not looking for the word ISIS, you've got the word this is, and you're really sort of find a lot of blocking going on there. You know, the issues if you've got the word keyword in the text as well, that can be blocked. Or working for a company like that owns a lot of computer gaming titles, the word shoot is often blocked, and it's quite hard to describe a computer game and not use the word shoot.
Yeah.
Computer game. So it's a lot around the keyword search is a big issue.
So the keywords are a big challenge. So whereby someone does not want to appear against the word ISIS, you certainly shouldn't be penalised for this is. So that's probably a little bit of education from our side that we need to offer agencies in terms of how they actually set up those keywords, because there are particular ways of setting up keywords to ensure that sort of challenge doesn't happen. I guess something like a shoot is also a little bit of a challenge when it comes to gaming titles. So I guess what we're going to be going through in a bit more detail later is how you can now approach agencies with, you can use our technology not only to verify your inventory, but you can deliver out against brand safety categories. So for example, you could ask them to remove a particular keyword list that's got shoot in it and only deliver low risk content when it comes to violence. So any other challenges when it comes to IS technology?
You can't break out from the iframe, so you have problems measuring high impact formats
Break out from the actual iframe.
on mobile. So you have problems measuring high impact formats on mobile.
Yeah, it's certainly not something I'm aware of. I mean, I know we've got Mr. Heyman, one of our sales engineers here, but as far as I'm aware, we break out of iframes.
Yeah, I mean, most of the iframe technology is you're querying a browser API anyway. So in a Flash world, yes, that would have been a problem in kind of cross-domain supply, which is the majority of the mobile. But kind of now your 365 API, Chrome API, there are some tools for Internet Explorer around simulating clicks. So there shouldn't be too many problems with general support for viewability. In the majority of scenarios, I think kind of generally speaking, I'm wired to commit to delivering, getting out 100% because, as you all know, iframes are built to prevent, kind of getting to the root domain and other things that you get from the page. So generally speaking, a business like IS and others will make their best efforts to get to the root domain. You have a ladder effectively of 15 things you do from that to kind of get there. So I think yes, in mobile, generally speaking, it's slightly more difficult because there are different variables on the page, but there's no core difficulty there at the moment for IS.
It was working in a mobile business that had produced things to scrollers on mobile web. And the IS guidelines around that was to optimise away from mobile web. When your entire business is structured around mobile web, it's quite difficult to do that. So that's a challenge. It's different by different vendor.
Yeah, something like that. It shouldn't be a problem in terms of extracting viewability. And it's certainly better now that Flash has been disabled because you're not relying on kind of Flash pixels and blocking those kind of problems. But yeah, I'm happy as well.
And I guess the final point I wanted to make around opportunity was certainly an AOP type publisher alliance, whereby you go to market with assurances around potentially assurances around viewability with a standard attached to AOP publishers, premium publishers that you're probably going to hear a bit more about over the next couple of days, but also assurances around levels of brand safety and also assurances around what you're doing around fraud. So let's have a look at some of the market benchmarks that we see. On the left we have ad fraud, and you'll see the bottom chart is non-optimized, so whereby IS technology has not been used. And you'll see that inherently programmatic has greater challenges than publisher direct when it comes to ad fraud. So for programmatic, we see around 7.7%, and for publisher, around 3.1%. And that 3.1% will range from publisher to publisher, dependent on how attractive they are to bots in particular. For brand safety, again, for programmatic, we see around 3.8% of inventory that we mark as being either moderate, high, or very high risk. So when I say inventory, we mark, we're not some sort of weird teacher, but we look at the URL, we look at keywords, we look at semantics, we look at metadata, and effectively mark every single URL that we see across the commercial web for levels of brand safety. You'll see that programmatic is inherently slightly riskier than publisher direct, but there are still challenges with brand safety across publishers direct, across premium publishers. If you think of a breaking news publisher, for example, there are certain advertisers, certain global advertisers who do not want to appear against some breaking news content. If you think of magazine-y type publishers focused on, forums potentially, sort of advice, things like that. Again, there are inherent challenges with brand safety. So that 2.2% is really just a benchmark. And for some publishers, it will be as low as 1%, and for others, it will be significantly higher than 2.2%. For viewability, I think this is probably where premium publishers really stand out. So for viewability across publishers direct, we see an average of 64.2%, and across programmatic, 47.3%. So yeah, I guess a question to the floor: what sort of goals, viewability targets are you given by the buy side, and are they realistic?
Usually around 70%.
About 70%. Does that seem to be standard?
Seems to be the standard with every premium advertiser.
Okay, and is that achievable?
It is, depending on the format and where it is on the article page.
Yeah.
Yeah. So formats that are, let's say, after the first article, obviously the form getting worse, but just GCE format which appears after the third paragraph, which is achieving and superseding all viewability benchmarks.
Yeah. So what have you done as a publisher to really improve your sort of levels of viewability? Are there any secrets that you can share with the room?
I think for us, it's really just getting on the ad ops team, making sure that they monitor as many campaigns as possible, as often as possible, and catching up with them to see where we are with everything and optimizing to the high-performing creatives and high-performing geos as well, if possible.
Yeah. So you actually see a variation in geo as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, 70% seems to be the standard, and that's certainly what we hear in market. So let's go on to what clients are looking for. So what we see advertisers looking for. Firstly, discrepancy-free reporting. Generally, advertisers and certainly publishers as well are looking for discrepancy-free viewability campaigns, which allows both sides to benefit really. And again, clients are looking for minimal fraud from the supply side, and they're looking at the supply side to do what they can to remove fraud from their buys. Yeah, as I mentioned, assurances around brand safety is very sort of commonplace now as well, and of course viewability performance, which seems to sort of net out around 70%. And generally, they are looking at cross-plan, cross-platform measurements. So, my comment around social media verification has been a demand from advertisers and agencies who want to compare as much of their media plan as possible when it comes to things like viewability and ad fraud. So the questions that marketers need answering are very much quite simply are my ads reaching real people in the appropriate context? Are these humans looking at my ads, and are they in a brand safe environment? Am I spending efficiently? What are my levels of viewability? And also, are we having an impact on the consumers? And we're certainly doing a lot of work in the US at the moment around looking at the impact of viewability on that user and whether or not that user went on to perform a particular action. And how can publishers answer these types of questions? And the first one is really crucial. But it's clarity from the outset around media quality settings. And I've sort of lost count of the amount of times I've been in meetings with publishers, and they've said the agency hasn't been transparent around the sort of levels of brand safety and levels of fraud that they're looking for. So it's difficult to really answer that, but really sort of push back on the agencies and advertisers that if they want a closer relationship with you, and if they have particular challenges and particular targets when it comes to brand safety, they have to be upfront at the start of the campaign. They can't, arrive at the end of the campaign and look for make good impressions for fraudulent impressions when they haven't been upfront and transparent from the outset. Secondly, independent verification of owned and operated properties. Of course, that's absolutely something we encourage. But as I mentioned at the start, I think the next step for publishers is really that automated optimization, which leads on quite nicely to point number 3: automated delivery to hit client targets. So, I guess most importantly today, let's go through the actual optimization tool in a bit more detail. So take back control and automate delivery. So that take back control sounds like a slightly weird sort of Brexit slogan, so apologies for that. But effectively, the publisher optimization tool is an integration that we have with the major ad servers, but particularly DFP, which effectively allows you as publishers to go into DFP and choose your own media quality thresholds. So choose the viewability threshold you want to deliver, the level of brand safety you want to deliver, and also, what we'd assume and hope, the fact that you want to deliver out fraud-free, bot-free impressions to that particular advertiser. There is a bit of integration. Phil's one of our sales engineers, so can certainly go through some of the nuances after the session. But effectively, we need a bit of JavaScript on your page because we need to be called before the ad server. We need to say, yes, we have seen this URL before. It falls into these brand safety categories. It would be low risk for adult, moderate risk for violence, etc., etc. And also, we have seen this user before, and we know that it's either fraudulent or it's not fraudulent. So it allows you to sell direct campaigns and private marketplaces and deliver out private marketplaces using media quality. I think really importantly, it allows you to match the media quality settings being set by the advertiser. So for example, that advertiser might be looking at a 70% viewability segment. You can now go into DFP and use IS technology to deliver out 70% viewability. And if the advertiser is using IS and you're delivering out IS technology, the campaign should be discrepancy free when it comes to looking at viewability. Again, the advertiser might be looking at low risk brand safe content when it comes to our 7 content categories. So you can mirror that within DFP. And finally, it might have a zero tolerance to ad fraud, like a Microsoft, for example, and you can deliver out bot-free impressions according to IS technology. So it goes back to what I said at the start. So all of that tech that was initially siloed for the buy side is now effectively in the hands of publishers. So these are the targeting segments that are available to publishers. So viewability delivery ranges from 40 to 90%. The thresholds are the IB standard, 100% in view for any time, so the Group M standard, 100% in view for 1 second, the publisher standard. But also more recently we have time segments, so 5 seconds, 10 seconds and 15 seconds. So we make predictions on every single ad slot and URL that we've seen as being likely to be in view for more than 5 seconds or more than 10 seconds or more than 15 seconds. But that removes some of the inefficiencies that an FT might see, for example, when trying to deliver out sort of cost per hour type campaigns. And as I mentioned at the start, the viewability decisioning, I haven't mentioned it, but viewability decisioning is based on page URL, screen resolution, window resolution, ad units, ad slots, browser, and user agent. So I guess we believe it's as efficient as the best sort of ad ops team out there. And again, the brand safety and ad fraud targeting segments in a bit more detail. Brand safety delivery, either at low or moderate, are probably the most likely use cases for publishers. And the categories span from alcohol to adult, illegal drugs, illegal downloads, violence, hate speech, and offensive language. So effectively mirroring what the buy side use when it comes to brand safety. And ad fraud, of course, either at true or false. And all of that is based on pre-existing IS data. So IS data that we have gleaned through crawling the web for brand safety, and also having a really good idea of how users behave and effectively indexing users for ad fraud. So now Clementina is going to talk you through a real life example, how it would look in DFP and how it would potentially work through a PMP.
So switch of the switcher. But so, as you see on the screen, we wanted to give you a sneak peek into how it actually looks inside DFP. And again, I mean, as you can see on the screen, like it's not just Notion. The categories, I mean, having worked and working on the buy side as well, the categories are exactly the same. So this is not like, I'm a big fan of the fact that, it's not replacing Adobe's team by any means. It's just giving tools, right, to do all of that they're doing at a scale, and with the guarantee that you're actually mirroring the exact same tools that the other side have, because otherwise it's a kind of like unfair setup to begin with, right? So it's the very, very important point is linked to DFP forecasting for each three of the categories. So for brand safety, fraud, and viewability. And again, so it's not just a tool that can enable you to execute at a scale with the assurance that you're matching what your buyers are asking for, but it's also a tool that allows you to get a good grip of how much of what you've got actually fits within those categories that your buyers are asking for. So again, it's a fair conversation at the start, and it gives you a tool to, get back to them and say, right, or monetize better what you've got, or assess if you're monetizing good, in an efficient way what you've got. You can utilize it for direct buys, and I've called it premium RTB because having been in the industry for a while, like we define them PMPs, premium RTB. What are we talking about, right? So before I get into the reason why I'm giving you this sneak peek into PMPs today, I just wanted to put this very high-catching slide in here that comes from the IAB themselves about what is that we defined by, like the first three rows are what we defined as premium RTB. So utilizing utilizing technology to transact in a premium setup. And we've got three different kinds of what, generally speaking is assessed as PMP, and we see it's not really correct. So we've got automated guarantee, which is also known as programmatic guaranteed, unreserved fixed rate, which is also known as the preferred deals, and invitation-only auctioned, which are the actual PMPs, right? And long story short, this was just to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. It doesn't matter which one of the first three rows we're talking about. You can utilize the tool among all of the three. And the reason why I wanted to give you a sneak peek into this whole topic today is based on, so I've been at IS for 3 months, right? So it's not a long time, but I can guarantee you that in those 3 months, the kind of troubleshooting conversation I've been involved in the most, and I thought I got rid of them when I went away from DSPs, is actually PMPs not delivering, right? How many of you have had the pleasure to be involved in this kind of conversations? Everyone, great. So the reason this troubleshooting conversation I've been involved in regards mainly the buy side, and what we've seen talking about parity of tools that you've got available is that PMPs suddenly not deliver because what happens? Because they apply filters on their end. And what is the caveat there? So when they apply the filters that they've got available on their end, to give you under the hood on how that works, right? Rely on the capability of whatever technology they're using to read the URL that gets passed through the bid request. Now, you are the expert and you can tell me, but majority of the cases when a preferential transaction is set up, that URL is either semi-transparent or non-transparent. So we fall into what the problem is, right? So if they're applying on their side filters that rely on the capability of reading that URL, if that URL can be read, the technology on their side doesn't work. And that's why we see delivery stopping. So the reason why I've introduced PMP today in this context is because I deeply believe that this kind of tools now on your side can enable to not only have a frank conversation with them with regards to setting expectation, but also to say, leave me be in control And if we want to make a deal, like a preferential deal, I can assure you, because I've got the filters on my end, that I'll take care of it. And you can still apply. I mean, this is in the case of semi-transparent or non-transparent URL of deals. So, and again, it was a consideration of why it's important. It's not just important to give you, a breakdown of the tools, and why these tools can be applied in this kind of context, but also because maybe it's just me or maybe not. I mean, whoever reads the industry publications and so forth have seen how PMPs or preferential deals have suddenly skyrocketed again. It's like they're not a new thing. They've been around since at least 2011. Why have they come up so drastically again? I feel for two reasons. One, it's more of a trust. So again, human reason. So it's about trust, transparency, control, right? And the other one, which we don't have time to discuss today, but is the fact that PMPs finally, with the adoption of header bidding, actually have the real chance, not just in theory, to go up the waterfall. But again, that's probably for another conversation. To give you some stats, or trend lines on how the optimization tool works on a campaign. We can see this was we didn't fabricate this. I mean, you don't see names, it's it's easy. You could have just draw it yourself. Trust us on that. No, we didn't draw it ourselves. It's an actual campaign. The objective of the campaign was 80% viewability, and it was a PMP deal. So you can see, I think, two things kind of come to the eye immediately, right? Before the optimization tool, so automation kicked in, we had instances in which, the kind of test and trial optimization that were put in place got close-ish to the set goal, but there's very little consistency in the trend of results, right? Once the optimization was enabled, we saw not only a spike, towards the actual set goal. So finally, the goal was being hit, but it was being hit consistently. So again, it's not so much, replacing ops team with technology, it's the fact that finally not only you can have assurance of hitting that KPI, but you can be consistent in hitting that KPI, which is very important for monetization. We've spoken about, who hasn't heard of the Group M standards or customization in standards? Okay, everyone has heard about them. Great. Does someone want to take the hint and tell the room what the Group M viewability standards are? What they've come up with? There's no right or wrong, no judgment. No? Is it 80%, 90%, or 100% of the?
They want 100%.
100%, exactly. It's 100% of the surface of the asset, of the pixel in view, both for display and video. And the difference is that for display, it's, again, talking about the time element, right? They've decided that it's 100% in view for whatever period of time. When it comes to video, it has to be 50% of the asset in view. It has to be user-initiated and sound on.
Has that been enforced? Does anyone have to meet that 100%? We don't have to meet 100%.
It's not 100% just yet, but that's the aspiration for 2020. That's what we want to get to. So they're saying that at the moment 70%, but it will rise to 100% by 2020.
Exactly. And, it's not like Group M aren't just coming up from one day to another with a different standard. There has been a demand from, Paul mentioned P&G, Unilever, it's the advertisers. And if I may say, the work we are doing with the advertiser is we try to be impartial and consultative in the sense that, those standards might be very valuable standards, have got a lot of research behind, but ultimately right, is a case by case. We are advocate of the fact that as an advertiser, you should make your own metric, meaning you should first of all understand which are the KPIs that work for you and you alone, and what you've got available from a measurement standpoint at the moment. So again, this is to give you an example of the fact that as a company, we are setting up ourselves not just to cover, the alternative standards, like overall applied standards, but also we're definitely going towards customized standards as well. And this is an example of a campaign where I missed out, it was 80% again. It was first 70% and then 80% again, one of those campaigns where the goal changed in the middle of a campaign. So again, before optimization, it was kind of getting to 70%, but not consistently. Optimization applied, we surpassed the 70%, and then they changed their mind, 80%, and we went up with it. So again, it's a tool that your teams can work with to have the certainty to hit or get close to those KPIs. Another couple of slides just to show you, we've spoken about viewability, just to give you an example from a brand safety perspective. So as you apply the optimization tool, brand safety risk goes down to minimal. And again, this is very much like when it comes to brand safety, as we mentioned, so we've mentioned keywords, like it's substantial that you've got the same tools that the buy side has, because brand safety, more than anything else, is very much subjective to the brand that indicates those parameters. Because what's brand safe for Diageo is not brand safe for some of the brands that Unilever has within their umbrella, right? So again, on brand safety, perhaps more than with anything else, to have the same tools is substantial. And fraud, we mentioned fraud, let's not leave that out. So again, same levers, and you see that as you apply, fraud levels go down and stay within respectable limits. So to give you an example of how this translates from a viewability standpoint, so we've got here an example of a campaign where the advertiser request was 10 million impressions at 70% viewability. So to give you an example from a monetary perspective, right, of how that translates. So before IAS optimization, before having an automated way to optimize towards those KPI, again, the trial and error. We mentioned operations teams doing optimization, trying out different things. And that translated into, a buffering of around 30%. And if you translate that buffering of 30%, it basically means that for 10 million impressions, you had to deliver 13 million impressions to hit that KPI. And if we translate that with an ideal CPM of 10 quid, that is £30,000 that you're saving and are able to reinvest and not waste. So.
Lovely. So, anyone got any questions around the optimization technology?
Or
No?
Objections as well.
Or objections?
Or
I mean, what about the buffering? I've put in 30% there as a bit of an estimate, but I guess it's based on a lot of conversations I've had with publishers who've been open about how much over delivery they need to account for when they're hitting, for example, a 70% target. Is 30%? Does that seem like a reasonable number, or is it in fact you don't buffer and actually you just, or maybe you look at 5% or? No, so you don't tend to offer some sort of buffer when it comes to viewability. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we don't trade on it, so we will try to hit the viewability number as best as possible.
Yeah. You don't trade on it, but I'm assuming you agree to a 70% delivery or a 65 or something along those lines.
We'll work towards.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Okay, right. As a bit of a summary, so the optimization tool, allows you to reduce waste when it comes to blocking technology, or indeed when it comes to over delivery for viewability. The integration is direct into DFP and allows for forecasting, so you can forecast how much of your inventory you could deliver to a 5-second standard that hit a particular brand safety threshold that was fraud-free over a given time, over the next 4 weeks, for example. Again, it allows you to price your inventory more intelligently, whether or not that's through direct campaigns or PMPs. But if you're making assurances that you're going to deliver out 100% of the ad for 1 second, let's say that's considerably better than the IAB standard. So it's a way in which you can potentially increase your CPMs. And then finally, just making those assurances around brand safety and ad fraud, either as an individual publisher or as a group of publishers, will certainly resonate with the buy side and agencies. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get you to talk to us, because we've done a lot of talking. But thank you very much for listening. So we have 5 questions, and we have 6 tables. So do you guys... We've got 5. Have we got 6, have we?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. If you, because these 2 are IS employees, so you're not allowed to.
Not fair.
You're not allowed to. So sorry, guys, if you don't mind joining this table or another table. So the first question, and we're going to ask you to report back probably in 5 minutes. Where do you think media responsibility for media quality, so viewability, brand safety, and fraud should sit? Is it a buy side problem? Is it a sell side problem? So if you don't mind thinking about that and reporting back to the group in about 5 minutes, it'd be great. Team in the back left, how do you think automation will impact your role in 2018? The team here that I'm sort of pointing out at the back there, what tool would you want IS to create to help achieve your business goals? Team here, what will be the main publisher trend in 2018? And you guys here, what industry initiatives do you think will help bring greater transparency amongst publishers or the industry overall? Or is there a new initiative that you guys would suggest? So yeah, talk amongst yourself, 5 minutes, and then we're going to ask you to present back to the room. Thank you. Guys, for your contributions. So I guess we're just going to spend sort of 5 minutes now asking each of the tables or teams to report back. I think there was loads of interesting chat on these 2 tables, and I'm sure it was the same elsewhere. So yeah, we'll start with you guys, if you don't mind, from Ziff Davis. Where do you think responsibility for media quality should sit?
So we think sort of both sides, publishers and obviously the agencies and the client. We've used a few examples from like a gaming perspective. There's say Nintendo for one of them. So on a gaming side like IGN that we work on, it's very much sort of all gaming focused. So you have games on there like Call of Duty, which would not at all resonate to a Nintendo audience, which are very family orientated. So it's up to the client to understand that they're appearing on this site that will have that content on there, and to take that into account. Also for us to understand that these guys don't want to be against that, and to do what we can to take their ads away from that sort of content. Yeah,
I know you mentioned a really interesting point around Remembrance Sunday, right? And you're just completely stopping advertising around a particular game.
Yeah. So so this Friday there's a new Call of Duty game out, but it's also the Remembrance weekend, and we're pausing and taking off all activity for that, just to be respectful to the actual events that happen. And this is a responsibility that's shared between ourselves and also kind of the client and the agency. So they can request that, or sometimes we'll go to them first and kind of advise on it, and we'll go from there, because it's important to obviously keep in mind what campaigns we're running, and also think how that's going to affect our audience, and to keep that brand kind of well respected by not kind of putting it in a hot water situation like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way in which a publisher is being really proactive around brand safety, I guess, and being really sensitive. Any other points around that? No? Perfect. Well, I think that was well answered. Jenny and team, how do you think automation will impact your role in 2018?
So I think we create which with all the hundreds of line items we have, it is prone to errors and mistakes. It can be a little bit soul destroying as well. So any form of automation will have a huge impact. It will empower the people behind that to make better informed decisions. It will make it far more, us to monetize our inventory in a more efficient way. So it's definitely something that we're looking to try and do. We've got lots of pieces of tech. We just need to tie them up nicely, speak to each other, and provide more insight and more informed decisions. So yeah, it's definitely something that's a big focus for us next year.
Cool. Is that you signing on the dotted line then, Jen?
Not necessarily to you.
Thank you. So
I'll keep you guessing.
we're on the list. So yeah, guys at the back, what tool would you want IS to create to help achieve your business goals?
We like to come up with a training module, so it's about the guys at IGN and what they just said, which is to teach the buyers in terms of how to use your technology effectively.
Yeah.
So instead of hiding behind the numbers and using it to make money out of this, to actually use the technology properly so that they understand when they're setting the PNPs, that they set them up correctly.
Yeah.
So the optimization tool is one thing, that's great, but
Yeah.
if they're not setting them correctly in the first place, then
Yeah.
it's kind of academic.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's also a training tool to teach the agencies.
Yeah. I mean, what we should definitely do is set up a session with a room of publishers and some agencies as well, some of our agency buyers. So there's a clearer line of communication, and there's an understanding from both sides how the tech works. So yeah, appreciate that.
I think that would be
Makes
really
sense.
good, actually.
Yeah.
It's quite.
Just to hear, their
Both
pain
sides.
points as well as ours, and understand it from both sides. I think this comes down to a bit of laziness from their side, because it's just quick and easy, isn't it, to just apply that to everything? Because we have the same problem sometimes where we get supply problem tags and we don't need to be blocked against all these keywords for a premium vertical publisher. It doesn't apply to us. So, yeah, there's no need for that involved.
Cool. Anything else around the tools? No, but the education session is definitely something we can maybe try and work with the AOP on setting up. So yeah, a nice generic one for you guys. What will be the main publisher trends? There should be an S on there in 2018.
More generic and big question.
It's a big question, isn't it? Yeah, you're a futurologist, aren't you? One of those.
Yeah, definitely. Got more eyes in the future. Don't you can see the present.
It must be difficult.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, so a lot of the things that you touched on in your presentation are obviously very key issues, such as viewability and brand safety. We had a talk earlier about ad blockers. That's another major issue. So especially in terms of revenue, we need revenue to stay alive. And we were thinking like data partnerships, utilising data to make ads as relevant as possible. I think probably the single main one is probably viewability, mostly because GroupM, what GroupM are like. They just keep imposing targets on us, and we need their money because they're the biggest. So yeah, just using technology to maximise viewability and try and make our videos and display ads as relevant and viewable as possible.
Yeah. Makes sense. Any other trends? Obviously, viewability seems to be a major one. I mean, what have you done at Global? Is it? What have you done to sort of?
We're introducing longer skips
Okay.
in our videos, but that's some sort of. We'll try and do that for months. It's just going to need to sign off by editorial.
Yeah.
And we've made our billboards sticky, so that as you scroll down the page, the billboard stays with you, to ensure that we keep GroupM specs.
Yeah.
Other than that, our viewability scores aren't that much of an issue for our other ad units, but those two are big
Yeah.
ones.
Definitely sticky unit seems to have been a bit of a trend for publishers. I know The Guardian launched their sticky billboard a number of years ago, and it tends to have a really positive impact on viewability, provided it's done sort of sensitively with users in mind as well, provided it still looks good, right?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot up, but just a bit
Okay. Excellent. So I guess final table, industry initiatives what industry initiatives do you think will help bring greater transparency to the industry or amongst publishers?
Main one's ads.text.
Mhm.
So yeah, where you publicly declare who's authorised to sell your inventory. This is part of the IAB to reduce fraudulent buying by domain spoofing. So
Mhm.
fairly simple solution. We plan to do it probably in the next month or so.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see what actually happens.
Yeah. Can I ask how many people have implemented or are implementing ads.text? Yeah. Excellent. Anything else in terms of initiatives? How long is it going to take you as a publisher? I know you're at Haymarket to implement something like ads.text for everyone in the room.
Depends. On the consumer titles, as I said, probably within the next month. It's
Okay.
just a matter of prioritising
Yeah.
everything else. So,
Okay.
I don't know about the business.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're certainly going to go a long way in helping reduce domain spoofing.
I
And
think if we see some results from doing it, then it will be taken up across the business. Probably.
yeah. Lovely. Well, thank you very much for everyone who participated. And we now have the results of the acronym
Winners.
quiz, which I'd completely forgotten about. So, T, what?
So we have 5 people that have the same score. So
Wow.
we have tiebreaker questions. The 5 people are Adam G. Yeah. Jeff. Haymarket. Izzy. Yay. Tahir. And Valentina. Okay. So, do you just want to note down or like put your hand up or whatever for the 4 tiebreaker questions? And then whoever gets the most, there's 3 winners in total, basically. Yeah, you can write down. Yeah. Hide your answers. The first one is, which tube line is the only one that's
Industry
underground? It's industry specific. There's one tube line that's only underground, like throughout. Which one do you think that is?
That helps the room for the next Sunday pub quiz. If this comes out, you got it nailed.
The next one is IES specific. How many brand safety languages do we cover? Paul covered that earlier in his presentation, so you guys should have been paying attention. Okay. This is another IS one, but what are the time segments available in the publisher optimization tool? Again, Paul covered this earlier in his presentation. He looks so worried. Bless him. He looks so worried.
It's fine. The price is nice, but not that nice. It's
Okay.
So do the 5 winners want to hand a bit of paper to the person next to you? We can just quickly
Yeah,
read
and
out
you
the
can just,
answers.
yeah.
there was another one. There was one more.
Oh, I have one more. I have one more if you guys want to. Heyman actually came up with this one. How many does the Wimbledon?
How many seats are there on the
There you go.
Oh.
It's another good.
Okay.
You can't answer a lot. Okay.
Yeah. So the answer for the Wimbledon one is. So the
Subtle.
answer for the Wimbledon one is 14,979. Was anyone super close?
12,000.
Okay. No, just no.
He's not even going to read it out.
Not even worth it. Okay.
So yeah, whoever was the closest, I think, gets that one.
Okay,
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
1 point. The tube line that's the only one underground is the Waterloo and the City line. Did anyone get that? Yes.
Yay! That's a pub quiz classic.
Did anyone else get that? No. Okay. How many brand safety languages do we cover? 40 plus. So it's kind of a tricky question. Did anyone get that? No.
Who
What
said
the,
6? No, I'm joking.
what are the time segments available in the publisher optimization tool? What's the answer to that one, Pasbury?
5, 10, and 15.
Did you get that one? Yay.
Impressive.
I'm good with numbers, but nothing else.
All right. How many right answers?
1.
Just one. Well, better than nothing. How many did you?
2 out of 4.
2, yeah. And
I have to be honest, 0.
it's okay. It's fine.
So you weren't listening.
Yeah. And
Oh, okay.
at the back,
Yeah.
none. Okay. So winner. How many of you guys are there? I have 4 prizes. So 1, 2, 3. No. You got 0. Okay, fine.
I don't say.
Okay, we have 3 winners then. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Hey.